I just believe that this is a news show and a news channel. I have an ethical responsibility to say that you are lying.
No, I'm
you
not.
are lying.
I have an ethical responsibility.
I didn't interrupt you.
Hold on a
and
second.
you will not interrupt me.
You don't call me a liar on national TV, sir. Do not call me a liar on national TV, sir.
Our responsibility at this table in a news show and a news channel to call that out. And I'm going to do that.
Caroline,
you can huff and puff.
You've done it.
You can huff and puff and be mad all you want, and I don't care.
Hal, you can.
Finally, someone calls out MAGA for blatantly lying and pushing Donald Trump's conspiracy theories and lies when it comes to the elections. Guys, in this clip, Charles Blow doesn't hold back and he confronts one of his MAGA panelists that are at the table and straight out, flat out to his face, calls him a liar and doesn't let him get away with it. As usual, let's watch this clip in full. I'll give you guys my thoughts towards the end.
Tonight, CNN projects that Spencer Pratt, the Trump-backed candidate running for mayor of Los Angeles, will lose out on a chance to face the incumbent, Karen Bass. Over the weekend, the former reality TV star lost ground to progressive city council member Nithya Raman as more votes were counted over the weekend. Across all votes reported since election night, Raman has outperformed both Bass and Pratt, erasing a 40,000 vote deficit to Pratt and emerging more than 20,000 ahead. Now, before CNN's projection that Raman would advance, and with zero evidence to support this claim, today Trump said the election was rigged. On Fox Tonight, J.D. Vance also offered his skepticism.
Somehow we find ourselves in a situation where, number one, they're still receiving ballots, not just counting ballots, Jesse, they're still receiving ballots. And number two, the way that they're coming in just so happens to work out such that the Republican is getting kicked out of the final two, so it's a Democrat versus Democrat runoff. That seems pretty shady to me.
Everything is about vibes. You know, no proof, no substantiation, just vibes. And you know, we just came off a pretty heated conversation in the last segment. This time, I want to start with some basic facts about where this race stood when voters went to the ballot. So before these the votes really were starting to be counted, Karen Bass was in the lead. Nithya Raman was within the margin of error, but right behind her. And Spencer Pratt was in third, but he was actually outside of the margin of error. He was losing, okay? So you take that, then let's look at this. Karen Bass in head-to-heads against Spencer Pratt would have beat him by 18 points. Karen Bass in a head-to-head against Nithya Raman would beat her by just 4 points. So that's a competitive race. So when you have people like Trump and Vance and others saying, oh, there's a conspiracy here. There's no conspiracy. It's just math. It's just counting ballots. Why can't they just lose gracefully?
Well, if the Knicks win tonight and they say, oh, we're not going to know the score for 3 more weeks, I mean, people would riot in this city. And perception is reality. So
no, it's not.
If the Knicks
reality
win tonight and we
reality.
say we don't know, that creates the
perception is not reality
and
in
we
this
don't want
situation.
that. Why would we
reality
ever want to create a perception?
Reality is reality, okay? A Knicks game and voting are not the same thing. We know that. So voting, people get to cast their ballots and those ballots get to count. So do you want to count the ballots or you don't want to count the ballots?
Well,
we want to count them on election day.
You want to count them, if you're a Democrat, you want to count them until you pull ahead and then you stop. But I just want to say this. You have a system in California where you don't need a voter ID. You don't even need a voter ID you don't need an ID to register either. You count ballots long after the election's over. You don't have election results the evening of, like you do all over the country and in other countries with many more population sizes. You can harvest ballots. So you set up a system where you can create doubt with the voters because
doubt just gets created.
Well, and then all of a sudden, the candidate that conceded election night all of a sudden gets double the outperformance after the election.
What about Steve
and
Hilton?
Pulls ahead.
He's receiving votes in California. He's a Republican. Let's play what he said tonight. He agrees with you on the problems with the system, but he's probably going to be in the runoff. So let's hear what he says.
There's so many things wrong with the system. I've been saying all along that we take it very seriously because we don't want to let people down, and we're being very vigilant on it. We're keeping an eye on it. We've got teams standing by, lawyers standing by, and actually it's the same answer that actually I've been giving for a few days now. We've seen nothing that would give us cause to intervene in that way. But more importantly than that, Bill Asaley, the U.S. attorney, who's actually got the full weight, we're just a campaign, he's got the full weight of the Justice Department, and he's there and he's taking a look at it. And I trust that if there is anything that needs to be investigated, that he will make sure it happens. But I think the real point is that this whole system needs to be improved.
No question, California should count votes faster. But Steve Hilton is getting votes just in the same system, the very same system that Karen Bass and Nithya Raman and Spencer Pratt are getting votes in. And he's doing fine. And he's not crying foul because he's winning. Spencer Pratt just happens to be losing. And actually, if you look at the numbers, there's a lot of reason that it would make sense for him to be losing.
Well, okay, let's understand a few things that happened in California. And let's remember that in the United States, each state has their own set of election laws. That's just how our system works. In California, every voter, every eligible voter, every active eligible voter in California receives an absentee ballot. There are some people that do early voting. There are some people that vote in person. Most of the people that do those are Republicans. And most of the Democrats vote by mail-in ballot. Now, what happens in California? If your ballot is postmarked on election day, they count it. And they allow for 7 days for that ballot that could have been mailed in on election day to get there. That's why they are still receiving ballots, and they will be receiving ballots until tomorrow. There is a phenomenon in California known as the red mirage. Because Republicans vote early voting and vote day of the election, those votes are counted first. And so there's a disproportionate representation of Republican votes. I think Steve Hilton is receiving, if you look at California, California is what, 25, 26% Republican? And I think Donald Trump's endorsement of Steve Hilton helped him consolidate that Republican vote. And he is number 2 in a roster of 61 candidates running for California governor. So there is nothing in that race that's indicating any fraud. You can take an issue with how they do it. You can take an issue with the fact that they allow 7 days. You can take an issue with all of that. But it is a giant state with over 20 million voters where everybody is allowed to vote by mail. In Florida, most of us vote early voting or vote day of. So that's why we in Florida can count quickly. So it's not about counting quickly. It's if they're still waiting for election ballots to come in because the law allows them to come in until a week after the election.
Florida is also a good example of...
Well, we've had our issues.
Yeah, I mean, Florida has had their issues. But I would also say, like, prior to the whole Trump kind of, quote-unquote, sowing doubt, okay, in all of this, in Florida, Republicans used to rely on older voters voting by mail.
Yes.
Republicans relied on those votes.
It was Jeb Bush and my husband, Al Cardenas, who was the chair of the Republican Party of Florida, that invested tremendously in building a vote-by-mail operation amongst Republicans in Florida. And it used to be that the absentee ballots used to benefit Republicans. It was the inverse of what's happening in California.
But President Trump builds in his ballot. This isn't about the election results as much as it is about having confusion and chaos. So when it's election time, you get to have an opportunity to better shape the narrative in your favor. This is about November. This is not about now. This is about continuing to plant seeds of doubt. So if there is a blue wave, which, you know, that's debatable, he'll be able to say it was rigged, we need to investigate, these results shouldn't count, etc. So this is just planting more seeds of doubt.
It's also about depressing and suppressing the vote, casting doubt in the integrity of the election system and making people doubt, why do I even vote at all? Does it even matter?
Yes, and technically, all the candidates are nonpartisan. They're not
in California.
In California.
Yeah.
I think perception is reality, and I think it's exactly the inverse. Mail-in voting, fine, but why can't it all be counted on election day? You have this, it's creating this perception among people. Mail in your ballot, but get it in on election day, because it's creating this perception among people, correctly so, like, why don't we know the result on election day?
President
That just
Trump
is completely wrong.
inserting
And by the
doubt
way,
is creating
I live
perception.
outside of Los Angeles County, but I knew people who voted in Los Angeles who did not have to show an ID to vote. So the combination of not having to show an ID and the fact that we don't know the winner on election day creates a lot of doubt. Any common sense person
one of the
feels
first
that
things,
way.
I'll ask, do you remember one of the first things that Vice President Pence was tasked with when they first got into the White House?
About Vice President
But
Pence.
I would tell you, it was actually to investigate voter fraud. It was one of the first things that President Trump in his first term set out to do, was to investigate voter fraud. And you know what they found? Nothing. They found nothing.
I just believe that this is a news show and a news channel. I have an ethical responsibility to say that you are lying.
No, I'm
You
not.
are lying.
I have an ethical responsibility.
I didn't interrupt you.
Hold on a
And you
second.
will
I'm
not
gonna
interrupt
correct
me.
you. Hold on.
You don't call me a liar on national TV,
I wanna say
sir.
it-
Do
I'm
not
saying-
call me a liar on national TV,
Liar.
sir.
I'm going to let
You're a liar.
I'm
You
gonna
are a
let
liar.
you respond in just a minute.
And that I say that to
Charles, finish
spell
your-
it,
finish
I
your
can
point.
spell it too. And I have an ethical responsibility if people are going to come over here and poison voters' views of an election system that has no proof that it is rigged in any way, spouting the same lie that the president is spouting. We have an ethical responsibility at this table in a news show on a news channel to call that out. And I'm going to do that.
Caroline,
you can huff and puff.
done it.
You can huff
Go
and puff
ahead.
and be mad all you
All
want,
right.
and I don't care.
Hal, you can respond to that.
You keep ignoring what I've said. You're saying.
I'm going to keep ignoring it because you're
won't
lying.
Let me let him finish. Let me let him respond.
We didn't know there was
We'll address
mass
that afterwards.
Medicare fraud until the federal government investigated Minnesota, investigated these other states.
That's
California.
not true.
It's time out.
That is not
They
true.
won't let
That
me
is not.
finish.
She was in
hold
jail
Hold on a
already.
second. Hold on. Well,
I'm
hold
talking
on,
about
Hal.
mass
Let me just ask you to
amounts of
do.
fraud.
Let me ask you to do two things. First of all, let us try to be tethered in facts.
Okay.
Second of all, let's respond to what he said about your claims on the election.
Proof.
I don't want to hear about Medicare fraud. I don't want to hear about any kind of other fraud other than your claims of voter fraud and what proof you have of
Because
that.
California will not allow the federal government to review their voter rolls.
A majority of other states in this country, including many Republican-led states, also will not allow the federal government to inspect their voter rolls. Why? Because it is not legal for them to do that. And all the cases in which they have been challenged, Hal, all of them
What are they hiding?
All of them so far have been thrown out by judges because there is no legal basis for the federal government to inspect the state voter rolls. So what else do you have?
My point is that he's saying there's no evidence. They won't allow evidence to be gathered.
The
is point.
absurdity of your
They won't allow
point is that
evidence to
you
be
don't
gathered.
have proof. And then,
Once
I gotta
again,
say this. He doesn't have proof, and then he
yelling at
says,
me once
I don't
again.
have proof, and I can
Well,
prove that I don't have proof because they won't let us investigate.
let me just-
So you don't have proof, and you just proved that you don't have it.
Let me just give you some.
Oh my God.
Hal, let me just give you some more information on this. The federal government has received, I think it's millions of voter registrations from some Republican-led states that have given them access to it. Do you know what percentage of those votes or those registrations where they found actual, fraud of any kind?
Do you?
Yeah.
What is it?
It is a fraction of a percentage.
Fraction.
And in some cases, when they double checked, the flags that they thought were fraud were actually not fraud.
So what you're
And
saying is
my point
there's
is,
all
here's
kinds
what-
of fraud all
here's
over
what-
the place, but not in
here's-
voting.
Well, here's what my point is.
Not in voting.
You're claiming that it's never been looked at. That's false. You're claiming that this administration hasn't been able to look at it. That's also false.
Not in California. We're
You
talking
are,
about California.
you are claiming that just the fact that the federal government hasn't looked at all the state voter rolls is proof that there is fraud is not true.
but
what,
there's data,
again,
too.
I'll ask you again, what else do you have?
Okay, I just said earlier, when you have a candidate who's in third place, this is a Democrat and Democrat, Bass and Nyanya. And you have she's in third place. She was getting 20% of the vote on pre-election day, on voter mail-in, on election day, and then all the after election day, she doubles her
Did
count.
you listen to anything that Anna
I
said
did.
when she
I
laid
did.
it out?
She doubled
The
her
listening
count.
comprehension abilities
Do you
are
She only
understand?
won 2 districts.
Do you understand
She didn't even win
that,
her own
that the
district.
votes that come in by mail, that they're coming from mostly Democratic voters
Well, then
because
why
they
wouldn't they
tend
go
to vote
evenly
by
with Karen Bass? How does she beat Karen Bass?
Why did she concede?
How does she beat Karen Bass? Because people are voting.
No.
Because they
Why
get
does
to
she
make a
concede?
choice.
Wouldn't she know the data better than
By the way,
all of
she's
us?
not beating Karen Bass.
Hold on election night.
After election
not
day.
beating Karen Bass.
Hold on a second.
Nithya
Hold on.
Raman conceded.
Hold on a second.
She did concede.
So yeah, because she is not number one.
Right.
But this is an election in which it's a top two finisher.
Right, she didn't think she was going to get top two.
But Hal, votes are being counted. Okay, votes are being counted. Campaigns can make projections. They can do polls.
Wouldn't
they
she
can
know
do
better than
surveys.
us? Statistically, she thought she was done.
She might know better than us, but she doesn't know better than what's in those ballots.
But she knew they were going to be counted for another week and another 10 days
So are
after
you an
that. So
election
why
denier
not?
too?
Why concede that
Are
night?
you an election denier
because
too?
if you know,
We wanna know. We wanna know.
Let me lay out election law and how it works.
No,
in
I want to know if you
California
deny
for everybody.
elections. We
Because
don't need you to
in
lay anything
California,
out.
like you said, if your vote isn't in on election day,
I
you
think
got
you
7
are.
days to count it, and then you have another 10 days after that to verify
Yeah,
the signatures.
you are.
So if I know that, then Nithya Raman
Yeah,
knows
you
that.
are.
So why would she concede on
Yeah,
election
why would
night
she
if she knew there was more time for the votes to be counted?
What proof do you have that Spencer Pratt was winning this race?
He was in second place by a statistical.
She was
there
on
was no
stage
way
crying,
that
saying, "I
Before
lost."
we go, let's put up the
I
last
care about the country and the democracy.
the last poll
and I
that,
don't want to
that we can
destroy
use
it.
here
No,
at
you
CNN.
don't. No, you don't.
We're gonna let me just have Hal and,
No, you
and
don't.
Caroline take another look at this poll because polls are not everything. But since
Polls don't
we
matter.
don't have a, you just said that he was up in a poll. I'm just showing you
I didn't say
he's
that.
down in this.
He was
poll,
up in the
okay?
vote.
And so look, we don't know what's going to happen until election day, until voters vote. And right now, voters have voted and those votes are being counted, and that's what we go on. Okay? And unless you guys can come to this table with something other than a bunch of speculation, the idea that there is rampant fraud, there is no proof of it. There's no proof of it in California. There was no proof of it in Georgia. There was no proof of it in Arizona. And y'all have had 6 years on the Trump front to prove it. Why can't you prove it?
Because I just want to know why she.
You can't
why
prove
she
anything that's not
conceded.
true.
I just want to know why
It's
she
impossible.
She did not
infinite
concede.
time.
That is not accurate.
She was on stage crying.
She did not. Okay, she might have been on stage crying,
She's
but
an
she did
election
not. She
denier,
did not
and she's
concede.
not going to say it, but she's saying all the
She
things.
said there were still a lot of
Next.
ballots to be counted and that the race was not going to be called that
Why
night.
was she
All
crying?
right. Next for us, the
Maybe
president.
Guys, I absolutely love Charles Blow. We need more of that energy. On the left, we need more of that Charles Blow type of energy. Flat out calling these guys for what they are to their face. A liar. You are a liar. And that's exactly what Hal Lambert as well as Caroline Sunshine are. They know they're lying. We know they're lying. Everybody knows that they are lying. But these guys believe just because that they can throw speculation out there, they believe that they shouldn't be called what it is that they are, a liar. Just like Donald Trump, their orange god, is a liar. The fact, exactly how Abby Phillip laid out towards the end, 6 years you guys have had to bring some stone cold, solid evidence and some solid proof that fraud has been taking place. And they can't produce anything. In the 2020 election, Donald Trump went before a court and went before a judge over 60 times. Zero was the outcome. Donald Trump is now in office. He controls all parts of the government. Yet still, they still can't bring forth any evidence of actual fraud that's taking place in elections. Anna Navarro at the start of the clip perfectly laid out the reasoning for why it's taking so long in regards to counting the votes. Now, yes, we can all agree that it probably needs a bit of reform, without a shadow of a doubt. It shouldn't take that long, in my opinion as well. I do agree. But just because of the fact that you don't like their procedures, that doesn't mean that you have the right to be able to turn around and try and insinuate that it's fraudulent. That's wrong. That's wrong. And MAGA know that that's wrong. They know. But because it's what Donald Trump does, it's what it is that they're going to do. And like I said in a clip that I done earlier, it genuinely worries me that you have wealthy, grown adults like a Hal Lambert, like a Caroline Sunshine, who don't even have the balls and don't even have the courage to be able to tell the truth simply because Donald Trump doesn't want them to tell the truth. That to me speaks volumes. Let me know your guys' thoughts on this exchange down in the comment section below. And as usual, let's do the normal. Give the video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and hype up the video. See you guys in the next one.